Good morning everybody, what's happening? Welcome to Sunday. Today I'm going to be showing you how to adjust the valves on an M20 engine. This is an 87 325 IS with the M20 B25. First thing we're going to do is remove the nuts that secure the valve cover to the cylinder head. We'll also remove the spark plugs from the cylinder head. That way we can crank over the car more easily and we can set our valve clearances. Now it doesn't really matter too much what the sequence is when you remove the nuts, but I'll show you what that sequence is anyway. So we're going to start here with 1, then we're going to come up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then finally we'll remove these last 2 that secure that cover to the manifold. And we'll remove the bolts that secure the valve cover to the intake. And let's loosen up that hose clamp on the breather. I just want to note that this vent tube can be really dry and brittle, and if it has cracks in it, it can cause a vacuum leak, which results in a bad idle. This one was recently replaced about a few weeks ago. I replaced this with a brand new one, and I would recommend replacing it if yours is all hard and brittle. Okay, now we can remove the valve cover. And let's remove the old gasket from the head. Now let's carefully remove the spark plug wires and remove each spark plug. Okay, let's get started. In order to adjust the valves on this car, we're going to have to make sure that the camshaft lobe is facing down. And in order to do that, we're going to either have to put a tool on the crankshaft and turn the crankshaft so that we have the timing at top dead center when we adjust the valves. Alternatively, we can jack up the rear end of the car, then we can put the car in gear and turn one of the rear wheels. That will also turn the crankshaft so that we can properly adjust the timing. We only need to jack it up so high that the rear wheels are about an inch off the ground. And remember, never get under the car unless there's jack stands. Remove the belly pan from underneath the engine so that we can access the crank bolt. Alright, and here's what it looks like with that belly pan removed. Now as you can see, we just put a wrench on the crank bolt here, and we'll have somebody visualize where the camshaft lobe is, and we can begin adjusting the valves. So we'll get our feeler gauges. This is a pretty cheap set. I'll put a link in the description where you can get this. As you can see, it's already bent on a nice angle here, so we can feed it right in and get our accurate reading. Now it's recommended that you adjust the valves while the engine is cold. However, you can also do it while it's warm. It just has some different readings. You need some different clearance specs, obviously, once the metal components have expanded. But it's generally recommended to do this while the engine is cold, and that is also how all of the Porsche engines are required to be done. So let's take our gauge and we'll slide it in. This one's perfect. It has just a very slight drag on our tool. And just to demonstrate to you how we would adjust this if it was not correct, we're basically going to take a 10mm and loosen up this nut on the eccentric. Then we're going to take an Allen key and this will either loosen or tighten the gap. Now you can see if I go too far in one direction with it, it's too tight and I can't move the tool. That means that it's too tight. We need to back off on it a little bit. That's perfect. We want this to slide around nicely with just a very slight drag on our tool. Now with our tool still in place, we'll just tighten the nut. And once we've tightened that up, we'll just double check again. And this one is good to go. Now we'll move on to the exhaust side on cylinder 1. Now again, we're going to just make sure that all of the camshaft lobes on this cylinder are facing down so that the valves are closed. Now I can already tell that this exhaust valve is too tight. In fact, it's so tight that this feeler gauge won't even fit in between our rocker arm and the valve. So let's loosen up that 10mm nut and we'll adjust the eccentric so we have more space. There we go, perfect. Now we can fit that in. That one is way too tight. Alright, that's perfect right there. Now that we've tightened up the nut, we'll check it again. Okay, now we can move on to the next cylinder. Okay guys, so we're basically going to just continue all the way along here. You can go in the firing order because it will mean you have to, do less revolutions on the motor if you do it in order. But you can pretty much do it any way you want, as long as you're at top dead center on each cylinder when you adjust those clearances. As always, thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you out today. If it did, please smash that like button and subscribe.